The largest and most popular household name in the world, Nike, a powerhouse of aesthetics and design, have their proverbial toes in so many spaces throughout sports, it's almost unrivaled. They were the first to lead a revolutionary charge in carbon-plated shoes, seen on anyone from elites to amateurs. But with all this momentum behind them in the road running world, how does Nike stack up against other brands regarding the trail running space? It's time to run in the Nike React Pegasus Trail 4 Gortex. Hey guys, welcome back to the Time to Run channel, where I do most of the research so you don't have to do it all on your own. My name is Joel. It's time to run in a brand new pair of shoes. But before I start this review, I just want to go over a couple disclosures first. I purchased these shoes with my own money. These opinions and observations are my own. And no one gets to preview, edit, or provide feedback prior to me posting this video here on YouTube. No one is paying me to review these shoes or make this video. I'm not sponsored by Nike or any of the other brands seen or mentioned in this video. And lastly, if you like any of the products seen in this video, I provided Amazon links in the description below, because it doesn't add any additional cost to you for using the links, so please consider using one of my links if you plan on purchasing one of the products seen in the video. Now let's get to the review. When it comes to trail running, there are a few specific things I look for in a trail shoe: traction, comfort, and stability. If there's no traction, this conversation is over. And traction versatility is certainly an important subcategory. Common questions I ask are, can I run in these in deep mud or slippery and stubborn clay? How well do they shed clay? One pair of shoes won't shed clay or mud well, and I'll end up slipping around more than normal. Meanwhile, I have rocks or above ground roots I also have to contend with. How does it handle not necessarily snow, but icy conditions? These are the foremost running conditions I run in during a given year. Snow doesn't really concern me because it's inherently giving me traction. It's really the ice that concerns me, or slippery, packed snow. And believe it or not, even road shoes have some ability to handle icy conditions better than even some trail shoes. If you're curious about which shoes I'm referring to, I'll leave a link at the end of the video for these road shoes. Now, comfort is a given. Why would you want to run any miles if it feels like you're running on unforgiving shoe materials? Trails are where it's naturally more comfortable, unlike that of sidewalks or footways. So why would you want to have shoes that counteract that? And finally, as far as stability, I don't mean under or over pronation. I mean it in the sense that I prefer a trail shoe with a wider base where it counts and where it doesn't feel like I'm constantly thinking about my foot placement at the risk of rolling my ankle. So with those categories out of the way, you now have a better sense of how I'll be approaching this review. So let's get into the review of the Nike React Pegasus Trail 4 Gortex. First, let's talk about the upper. The upper, in my experience, was comfortable. It wasn't restrictive, and it did seem to allow the toes the right amount of movement during the strides. Nike describes their upper as breathable engineered mesh. In addition, the Gortex brand is providing an additional extra layer of protection from the weather. I found it very effective in keeping the snow out and keeping my feet dry. I really love the colorway. These colors are nice and muted. Nike's calling it alligator orange trans mint foam. I don't know why they couldn't just stick to a couple names, but you know, they got to be creative with everything. I think they did a really good job at picking the colors that complement each other well. Unlike my previous shoe reviews, this is not a fair weather only colorway, which I think is a really good pick for the trails. They'll look great regardless of how dirty they get. It's a clean look now, but a little bit of mud will make these look that much more badass given some time. So there's some overlays above the toe box, and for added protection, Nike has extended their outsole rubber toward the front top as well, which should help guard those toes from getting stubbed. I'm such a fan of all the little minor details, from the trail logo overlay to the just run it, reason not required, to the raindrop patterns atop the toe box. Overall, even if the shoes in my opinion only deliver well in mild climates, Nike has these aesthetics dialed in. It's such a beautiful looking shoe. The tongue isn't too bulky, which is nice. It features a gusseted style to help keep those pesky pebbles and dirt out of the shoes. As far as the midsole, the feel is very comfortable. Nothing I would personally take on long distances, but certainly middle distance and less would make for pleasant runs in fair weather and on packed trails. The caveat with that is that the React foam feels a little bit more dead in freezing temperatures, so the response isn't really all there, versus if it were in mild climates, running on the roads proves to be a great ride compared to other trail shoes. I didn't feel any rocks or tree bark underfoot, so that speaks to it having a good amount of cushion and protection underfoot. I would not describe this at all as a shoe fit for racing. The dimensions don't really lend themselves to that kind of performance. Plus, there's not really any roll technology helpful in giving someone the propulsion I've come to expect in other trail racers. Speaking of dimensions, let's get to the particulars. The stack height in the forefoot is 26 millimeters. Meanwhile, the heel is at 36, giving us a fairly minimal 10 millimeter drop. So let's move on to the collar. It's a very comfortable and attractive ankle collar that's designed to be a built-in gaiter. It's made of standard absorbent fabric, which in this case means water can still get in despite it being a Gortex branded shoe. I found this to be true both with these and another Nike shoe I've been testing. Another shoe review to come at a later date on that one. I found them visually attractive, but not too effective in keeping the ankle collar secure or snug as intended. I saw it would flare out laterally. I think there needs to be an elastic band built into the gaiter that actually cinches up around the ankle. Currently around my ankle, it was folding and creasing outward. Without it, there isn't any structure and leaves much to be desired from the design. So an overall attractive design piece, but ultimately not very useful in my winter climates and running conditions. Onward we go to the outsole. I have to admit, Nike put a pretty unique lug pattern on the bottom of this shoe. It's actually new from its predecessor, the Trail 3, which had more curves from their lugs that more resembled boomerangs than that of tried and true chevron lugs seen in just about every other shoe. I'm not entirely sure what the strategy is behind these long flat lugs. I can honestly say I'm not familiar with any other trail shoes that resemble this kind of design. This is unlike any trail shoe outsole I've seen before. I didn't find it particularly helpful in snowy conditions, just on packed dirt and packed sand. So that's where I'm seeing it fit best. It seems to me that this is their way of creating more surface area underfoot, especially during the road portion on a road to trail route. I have to wonder if someone like myself would appreciate the additional traction and rubber height for durability and longevity purposes, as someone who uses this main section on the lateral portion of the shoe. I do have to say I was quite impressed at how well it handled on the road, as well as on the sandy packed trails. If I hadn't even looked at the outsole before lacing them up for a road run, I would have never guessed it's a trail shoe. I think this is one of few features that really stands out, quite possibly even the biggest thing that the shoe's got going for it. So how did it feel like running in the shoe? The overall comfort underfoot was great. Slightly more cushioned than I was expecting, but was still hoping for just a little bit more. When I started my run, I started it on the road, and I was surprised at how comfortable these were on the roads. I did a 4-mile loop and found it pretty satisfactory for that route. It was mostly on snow and packed sand, and it did well, except for when it got a little harried on icy conditions. So who is this shoe made for? Anyone can use this shoe. You don't have to have much experience with running trails to purchase these shoes and have them fit for those runs. So those who are wanting to get into the trail running space should take this into consideration. My opinion is that that's the intent behind this shoe design, an introductory trail shoe. Those who have been running on trails longer might balk at some of the aspects of these shoes, but the vast majority of people will find it comfortable and a great trail runner to start. Whether you call it a hybrid or road to trail shoe, they'll be a good choice to run both roads and trails, however you mix those into your route. These would work perfectly to run on single track out in the country or on streets. Either way, it's going to work well. Those who are wanting to run their daily easy miles to tempo miles on the trails will enjoy these shoes as well. Even better if you already know the trails you're running on. I would say these would work up to 15K runs or races. You could probably push it a little bit more, but that's personally what I would stick to. And lastly, those not wanting to step outside the Nike brand might find these shoes more appealing as a starter trail shoe than other brands, and or if you find the options for other trail shoes overwhelming, which I've definitely been there. That being said, for the price, you could go for a different brand of shoe and get a little bit more robust of an option. Speaking of which, let's move on to where the shoe struggles. It doesn't thrive on technical trails. Honestly, it doesn't. So trails with large boulders and boulders especially with slippery surfaces, above ground roots, or muddy conditions might make this shoe a pass for me. Because I live in conditions where not only do we get snow and ice, but also the melt from winter sessions, it means for very muddy trails in late winter and early spring. Wouldn't necessarily be a shoe I'd be reaching for those conditions. Most of my miles of testing were done on packed, sandy, and snowy trails. While running in the shoe, it wasn't much of a concern. Walking was an entirely different experience when it came to ice. I know it sounds weird to say this, but I felt more confident running than in walking in these shoes. I would not recommend these shoes if you're looking for something to tackle walking activities, especially in winter conditions. Rain is not a concern, or even snow, but certainly it's the ice or the snow atop ice that concerns me with a pair like this. The last criteria I want to go over is going to be about the sizing. For this shoe, you're going to want to stick with your standard shoe size. A big point of contention for me was a combination of things, one of which was the sizing. The pair I purchased, which is also the size I've always purchased in the past from Nike, is a 12.5. For this pair, that fit didn't suit me. It bunched up in the upper above the toe box. I spent too much time experimenting with the laces during the run. It became quite frustrating. Because of the sizing issue, my feet ended up slipping around. If there weren't other factors that ultimately led me away from this shoe, I'm positive that a size 12 would fit me just fine, regardless of the fact that a 12.5 historically fit me best. I'm not new to the Nike brand by any stretch. I've had over a decade of running in 12.5s. I know my size, so either I've changed or they have. It's probably a little bit of both. And that's okay, because even though I'm not as much of a fanboy as I once was, I still love the brand, and it still got me to where I am today. And that's the most important part. So as you may have already guessed, these shoes didn't really meet my criteria or needs. At the end of the day, I returned them. But that may not be your experience. If you bought these shoes, let me know, and others in the comments below, how they've worked or how they haven't worked for you. In conclusion, if you're getting into trail running, I'd say these are definitely worth taking a look at yourself if you live in climates with mild to warmer weather. The promotional materials made it sound like it was God's gift to mankind, but I couldn't help but feel a little bit amused and a little disappointed, honestly, at how they were describing the performance people would get out of it, when in my testing the experience with them was okay. So I think that covers everything I wanted to go over in this review of the Nike Trail 4 Gore-Tex. Stay tuned to this channel to find out what shoes I replaced these ones with. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know by hitting the like button if you did. Please consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, and if anyone asks you what your favorite running YouTube channel is, just tell them it's time to run. No, seriously, go on a run. Trails are where it's naturally more comfortable, unlike that of sidewalks or footways. So that's why I have to You're such a little love bug tonight, huh? This is Penny. She's a rescue. I found her at a park doing interval repeats. Her and her brother were lying in a yin-yang cuddle pattern, about to freeze to death. It was 2 Septembers ago. Yeah, it's about 2 Septembers ago. I need to work on my video. Can I do that? It's gonna bother me? So sweet.